Okay. Hello. My name's Dean Yasuda. Your facilitator for this evening. I'm not your facilitator. I'm going to be presenting the facilitator for this evening, and I'd like to welcome you to our Foundation for Conscious Living's Big Leap Home online programs. These programs support individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. So I'd like to invite everyone into a commitment. So if you listen to these words, just notice how they land in your body. All right, so we find that learning works best when we choose to bring curiosity, openness to learning, and appreciation of ourselves and others into the space. All right, so I'm going to be turning this call over to Alexande DeBlieux. And our experience, Alexande, is they are in this beautiful light and energy of curiosity and wonder. And when I'm around him, he just portrays this in a beautiful way. And I love being in his presence, and I love to see what he's going to have for us to play with tonight. So I'm going to turn this over to Alexande, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. This is my first time doing a Zoom workshop like this. So fun. It's going to be great. I'm so appreciative of all of you being here and your willingness to play with this concept. A little bit of background about me. So I've been doing brand work for over 10 years now, and this is a process that I've developed with several mentors. And what I got curious about was in this process of identifying culture, working through mission, vision, purpose, and core values, it was interesting to me how this process could be translated over into the personal discovery realm. So what we're going to be going through today is pieces of these exercises that I have. And I really am wanting to get curious with you all about how this feels in your body and in your experience when you're identifying these tenets of yourself, these core values. And I'm really wanting to get feedback as well to see how this is landing for everyone and how these processes work. So is everybody down for that? Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen. And does everybody have the PDF document that was sent out? Awesome. Yeses? Okay, cool. Perfect. And if you don't have it handy, it is in the event page on Mighty Networks as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, get this started. And it looks like, Dean, it looks like somebody might be trying to get in. I just lost my ability to see them. Everybody can see my screen? Awesome. Okay, cool. So I want to first start off with just taking 3 deep grounding breaths. I know I could use that right now, a little bit of nervousness in giving my first presentation like this. So if you could all just join me in that right now. All right. Awesome. So a little bit about core values. So whenever I do this work, the illustration that I provide is a tree. So the roots of that tree are the core values. They're the guiding tenets of yourself, or in the cases of this, I'll actually read you the definition I provide to organizations on this. Core values are the guiding tenets of an organization. They're timeless, enduring, and intrinsically important. Core values support the company's vision, shape the culture, and reflect the company's identity. There's no universal set of core values. Instead, a company must decide what principles it holds most important, who you are. So I really feel like this is very true to the personal discovery, the personal experience, this diving into core values. And what I think is really interesting and what prompted this whole class was the alignment and the connection that core values have with the commitments and agreements that we make, commitments we make with ourselves and the universe, and the agreements that we make with people around us. So in this visual that you see right now, the core values are the roots, the trunk of the tree, that's the mission. And then the branches of the tree are the vision, sway in the wind and change over the time. And then the foliage coming off there, that's the culture that comes through all of it, kind of blooms through it all. So for the next rest of this hour, what I want to do is go through each of these exercises with you all. So this is essentially kind of a guided workshop, but throughout, I want y'all to ask questions. If the question isn't clear or you feel like there could be more clarification, let me know. We're going to go through each of these, and they're all reflected in the workbooks that you have as well. And we're going to go through each of these. I'm going to give 8 minutes, and then that'll give us enough time at the end for us to kind of all come back together and have a big discussion on what you found. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, cool. So the first exercise is am and am not. So feeling into who you are and who you are not. Using words that come to mind create alignment with the essence and language of who you are. So on this handout, or if you're just following the handout and you've got a note paper, start writing out the words that follow when you say I am. Just to give you some like thoughts for me, immediately what comes to mind, I am curious. I am a little tired. I am excited. I am wondering. What words come to mind? If anybody wants to unmute and share some of the words that you have too, that'd be great. I'll kind of spark some thoughts around. Just feel free to unmute yourself and say some words.
I am yes and.
Ooh. Well, Ariana Grande right there too. Anybody else? Any words we want to share?
I am love.
Hmm.
I am
Yes,
compassionate.
you are.
I am compassionate, curious, listening, ambitious, and interested.
Mm. I love all of those. I'm so happy to hear these on this call too.
I am pure sensitivity.
Mm. I'm loving this.
I am creative, graceful, calm, fun-loving.
Mm. Fun loving. That definitely makes my list for sure. So as we continue here, this part of this exercise is actually really interesting because from what I've experienced is this produces and sparks more creativity in the I am category, but thinking about what you're not. I am not. I'm trying to think some that come to mind for me right now. I am not willing to settle. I am not disingenuous. I am not drinking enough water. Hmm. Any words come to mind that anyone feels willing to share in the I am nots?
I'm not mean.
I love that.
I'm not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
I
this
am
or
not-
that.
I am not in control of my addiction to coffee.
Well, what, and also just that was a big statement at the beginning. I am not in control. Whoa. Very sorting the two files coming to mind.
I am not the doer.
Hmm.
I am not done.
Hmm. How are we feeling? Is everybody feeling like we're getting to a point of completion with this exercise? Give me a little thumbs up if yes. Give me a little no if you need more time. Okay, cool. Awesome. So this next exercise is about impressions. So the question here is if you're tuning in to those around you, what impression do you believe you're making? What impression do you hope to make? What impression would you like to avoid? So again, we're just kind of calling out these attributes. And when you think about this from a brand standpoint, just to kind of highlight what's happening here is we're trying to understand like a consumer's perception of something. So I think it's really interesting seeing this in the personal level because I never really thought too much about how people would perceive me, though I feel like sometimes maybe that's not true. Maybe I do think about that a lot. Maybe I think about it too much. But here's a place to explore it. So starting with what would be a good or desired impression of yourself that you want people to experience? For me, I hope to be experienced as authentic, excitable, maybe in like a positive way, playful. Got my my little tiny hand here that I found on the desk. These were actually wedding favors at my husband and I's wedding. On the middle of the dance floor, they brought out trays of these hands. All of our like relatives were like dancing and like holding their drinks. It was pretty fun. Anybody have any impressions they want to share? Positive impressions that they want?
I liked authentic, so thank you for that. I also have confident, capable, kind, helpful is a big one. My persona work is definitely around being perceived as helpful and intelligent.
Yeah.
I have all these thoughts at first about the stuff that I want people to think about me, like, oh, they're friendly, they're kind, how unique. And I keep coming back to actually, I want people to get a really clear and accurate first impression of me so that they can come closer or go away.
Mm. Oh, that's
Real
interesting. So that makes me, what do you think about clarity in that? Like just
clear.
the essence of
Yeah.
clear. I like that
Yeah.
a
I
lot.
want a clear essence of me to come through.
It's like it's getting into like honesty, like forthcomingness. That's not really a word, but
But there's also something about I want people to get that it's okay if they just want to do something different.
yeah, yeah.
And which also means I want me to get that.
Well, a lot. So what's interesting too that you say that, Ben, whenever I have organizations do core values, these are actually the tenets on which they bring on team members as well. There's a duality there, but then also whenever organizations are collaborating or in partnership with others, I have them measure the core values against those collaborations and oftentimes sign agreements and including them in like contracts and things just to kind of ensure alignment of culture too. So, I mean, when we look at this, and again, this what I thought was so interesting is how these values tie into your commitments and agreements. And we were actually talking on another call recently about how an interesting approach to figuring out a core value would be to find a wobble and then trace it backwards and understand this experience happened. It bumped up against this agreement, which in turn hit this commitment, which goes deeper into this value. Just another thought there. That's why I find this so interesting. So moving right along in this exercise, what would be an undesired or bad impression of yourself that someone might experience that you're wanting to avoid? For me, immediately inauthentic, or one of my big ones going with authenticity is people questioning my character. That brings up a big shock to me, to my whole system. My dad also is the exact same way. It's very interesting when we have arguments, as father and son do every now and then. That's something that we both come to an agreement on always, is that we both believe that each other have the best at heart and are being in integrity in our character. Any thoughts come to mind? Anything y'all want to share about undesired impressions?
Checked out or closed off.
Making me open my body posture a little bit more.
I wouldn't want to be scared or insecure, to come off as insecure or rude or scared.
Yeah.
Or wishy-washy.
That's a good one.
Disorganized or unauthentic.
Quiet, shy. I also put resting bitch face.
That's a good one.
Feel like I give that impression sometimes.
My sister brings that up a lot. She has an experience of people will say that when they meet her, she seems standoffish. But what's really happening is she goes into herself a lot and is very observant. And when she's doing that, she's actually increasing the quality of attention she's giving to people, but she's not showing it necessarily.
I've got
Awesome.
Just piggybacking on that thread, mean or unapproachable.
Yeah, I've got fake and mean, closed off, unkind, thoughtless, ignorant, incurious, full cup. Like there's a quality of I know everything already and I don't need to hear or learn from anybody else. That just really, ugh. And then I'm taking from others here. I really love the insecure thing. I'm nailing that down to needing others to validate my being. And the thing you were saying about your sister brought to mind the Too Cool for You Club, which I sent my card back in. I don't want, they keep sending me the thing in the mail. And I'm like, no.
Then whenever you were talking about the full cup piece, it made me think like a desired impression there could be spaciousness. Like there's space, and maybe I'm thinking a little bit about my experience with this, but it's making me think like I want people to feel that I'm spacious around them, that I'm available to them and what they may have to say. Is everybody good to move on to the next round? Thumbs up. Good, good. Awesome. How we doing? Is this overwhelming? Is this scary? Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. So the next exercise we're going to do is about tone. So think about the way in which you speak to others and the way that you speak to yourself. Bring those thoughts into your body and create an awareness of your tone. The tone I use to speak to others is, to me, when I think about this question for myself, is easy, casual. I try to bring the conversation into a very approachable space, not too heady, not too formal. I don't like to use big words. Any thoughts anybody has there that come to mind immediately about the tone that they use with other people?
Open and fun.
Mm.
Clear and articulate.
Playful. Say that again. Clear and articulate, Andrea? Love that.
Context dependent.
That's a good one.
Gentle and inviting.
Janelle, I see your text, and I'm just reading your thing about conditional quality of availability. It feels like a real match to that context dependent tone thing. Because if I'm in a meeting with 30 people, it's very different. Like, we're in person and there's a chair and, I'm just a member participating, like, versus, I don't know, Zoom with Hendrix folks feels wildly different from Zoom with my HOA board. It's all different.
I'm going through the chat right now and seeing some of these as well. Yes, these are so beautiful. Smart pants.
Fluid.
Say that one more time, Andrea. Sorry.
Present and fluid.
Ooh, fluid. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, Janelle, and when people don't feel safe to me or feel obnoxious to me, I don't want to be available. Yeah, I get that. So now think about the tone that you use to speak to yourself. And my immediate response to that, whenever I started to write this out, was that I can sometimes be a lot more harsh on myself than I would ever be to anyone else. So it really highlights the difference. And, if this is important enough for me to speak to other people this way, can I do myself the same courtesy? Those personas that come up that have those critical perspectives, my protector parts and managers who want to get me in my place. Does anybody want to share anything about the tone that they used to speak to themselves?
I can be sharp and
sorry.
commanding.
Sharp and demanding?
And commanding, yeah. Marine family here. Woo.
I can be stern and directive.
I can be critical and judgmental of myself. Thanks, Janelle.
I can be forgiving and regretful. Loving and indecisive. Kind and critical.
It's fun to play with. I think what isn't this this playing with of both of these, speaking to others, speaking to self. where the difference is here, and when can we borrow from these tones, you know?
My tone can become staccato. I hate it, but it happens.
Say more about that, Andrea. I'm curious.
Staccato like a machine gun, like you know, like
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom. You know, when the kids are acting up and it's the end of the day. Woo! Not pretty. It has a sharpness to it. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm finding this one really rich. The tone I use to speak to myself is different depending on which part is talking. And when it's my essence self speaking to my parts, I speak with calm and clarity and compassion. And then I'm recognizing that when my essence is speaking into the sort of the mix of day-to-day life, that part of me speaks clearly and free of any insistence.
Mm.
And it's really easy to ignore. And if I tune in, it's really easy to follow.
Mm. You know, then that brings up a really beautiful point. I think that one way we can look at this exercise, and this is a note that I'm going to make for myself too, I think this is really important, is to ask your most essential self, what's the tone there? That shifts. Thank you for that, man, because that shifts for me a little bit. It brings me more into the kind, warm, considerate, compassionate, empathetic space for sure, which is generally how I'm communicating and using that's the tone that I have with other people too. Yeah. I'm loving all these words in here, Janelle. Personas versus essence. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Linda. Okay, awesome. Are we kind of feeling complete in this round? Everybody feel good? Thumbs up if we're good? Yeah? Okay, awesome.
I
Oops,
just,
question?
you just reminded me of something. So this is kind of it. I just had a little aha that
Okay.
when I'm speaking to others, I'm speaking from essence. Something triggers me and I get scared. And then it's personas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not scared talking to others. I'm just not. And so that's genuine. But talking to myself, I hear the voices from the past. Things that, other people have said to me. So the critics and, all the childhood stuff will come up, you know. But when I'm talking to someone else, I'm talking from a genuine place, from my authentic self. So I just realized that I don't get scared. I don't have, not that I'm aware of, let's say that. There are times when when I first meet somebody that there's a persona there, but in general, I'm not afraid. That's it. Wow. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Linda. This is making me really, I'm really curious about this because the tone in which, I mean, what I was speaking, like my tone is very different off the bat whenever I'm speaking to other people versus reflecting inward with the personas too. So that's very interesting.
In your organizational work, is this this question, instead of speak to others, speak to myself, is it speak to people outside the organization, speak to people, how do we speak within?
Yeah.
Thought maybe so.
Yeah. And usually understanding the difference there is it's theoretically they really shouldn't be different in an organizational space. And now this is why I wanted to do this. This is so interesting. When you layer this into the personal experience, it is so similar. This is so interesting. Oh, I'm loving this. This is so fun. Oh, I have to turn this light on. My
I'm
husband's
really
like, don't forget to turn the light on. But I don't know how it works.
I'm realizing that same dynamic exists in families where you speak one way to each other in the family and then differently outside of the family. What would people think? You know, put on the good
Right.
front. So
Right.
thank you for that.
It's true
Yeah.
too.
Some good stuff we got going on here. Sorry, y'all, my little tech issues. I'm in my husband's office right now, so I am a guest in this space. Okay, awesome. So let's go on to this next bit. Genius, which I think a lot of folks here are familiar with. This felt like a very seamless integration into this, because it kind of gets into the purpose bit of the work that I'll do with organizations. But just to familiarize ourselves, and if anybody hasn't done this recently, this writing down your different zones: incompetence, competence, excellence, and genius. And if anybody needs a refresh, I'll read these off again, for anyone who hasn't read The Big Leap recently. But your zone of incompetence, this is the question of, what do I persist in doing that others can do better, that I'm not good at, that I don't enjoy? Your zone of competence, what do I persist in doing that others can do as well? Excellence, what do I persist in doing that I can do better than most others? And then the genius question, what is my unique ability? What do I love most to do? What produces the highest ratio of abundance per time spent? What work do I do that doesn't seem like work at all? For me, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this, the nuance between excellence and genius is a tricky little bit right there. You feel so close, and then you kind of you find out a little bit more. When it comes to this work, I have categorized the discovery work that I do with companies to be in my genius. When this work is complete with an organization, generally this turns into a brand identity project. So I do creative direction, create their logo, color palettes, fonts, their visual expression of the brand, essentially. But what I've found is that I'm really good at creative directing that, but executing it, doing the design work, it's very much in my excellence, but it's just not quite in my genius. And once I figured that out, I leaned more into the Hendrix work and these deeper question asking. So whenever I go into spaces for the organizations, I can be more present and be present with the energies around me and ask the right questions to bring forth what really needs to be done. That's my my update on Genius Zone. But does anybody have anything to share here, revisiting these questions?
I heard you say something about this being a stand-in for some exploration of purpose, and those feel like a very different thing to me, and I'm really curious to know about what it is that you've got tucked away in a corner over there, or back behind your ear maybe, and with purpose stuff. And then the other thought I had with this conversation about genius, I hear the slippery, how do I distinguish genius, excellence? And my own learning there recently has been around that incompetence, competence, excellence, those zones all have to do with the thing I'm doing. And genius has to do with how I'm doing it. So my zone of genius that I've been exploring recently is all about making connections. And so I interrupt with new connections that disrupt patterns that are no longer serving to create patterns that do. And I do that. That's a way of doing. So I can do that if I'm working inside a computer or inside an organization or in presence with a person. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I can shift my activity to making new connections and that will serve aliveness, then I know I can land my genius there.
I love that. Beautifully said.
I just maybe had another aha, which is when I said before, I didn't feel scared when I was talking to someone else. I had in my mind getting to know someone else. So being curious about someone, being genuinely curious and being with them and finding out what's going on with them. That is very easy for me. And I could do it all day long. I'm not scared when I'm doing that. I get scared when when somebody said something about family, and so I know I do have personas that come up when I'm with family. When I'm not in a place of discovery, that's when the personas come. So I think I've always had a hard time figuring out what words to use for genius. And with that fine line, because I can identify with what you said, that fine line, you're excellent at something, and is that it? Or it feels like something else, I just can't really nail that. I think the genius quality would be being empathic and being with someone, feeling what they're feeling and being with them is so easy for me. And that's when I'm not afraid. I don't know. There's stuff to untangle in here, but that just struck me because I know I have lots of personas that come around and come out of my mouth, when I'm with, go out to dinner with someone, and that it happens. But when I'm really with someone that's going through something, I am really with them. And it is really easy. And maybe fine tune that a bit more.
Oh, Linda, when you talk about that, the words that come to mind together are presence and connection to me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing is this deep sense of like meaningful presence, to add more words around it, meaningful connection and deep uninterrupted presence. I think that's if we were doing this work, for like in this framework, that's the words I would pull from that for sure.
Yeah. Something that, so I've done a lot of hospice work, for instance, and there's this intimacy there that is, so rich and so good. And that comes easily to me. So it is presence, it is curiosity for sure. and believe it or not, kind of playful at the same time. I mean, I can play with people that are dying. They appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yes, it's definitely a presence and connection. So interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So juicy. This is so good.
I agree, it's juicy. I really, really appreciate the points that Ven, you and Linda, the follow-up, those points that you made. It reminds me of the Hendricks open to discovery scale. And when you're lower on the scale, that's when you're reactive and fearful. And
Yeah.
as you move up the scale, you even use that word, I think, you're curious, you're open to discovery. And that's tying that to the idea of genius really resonates with me. That's where the joy is. That's where my essence is. That's where my essence can connect to someone else's essence. And so practicing that with that in mind is really helpful to me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Mm,
I'm really
that's good
appreciating
stuff.
this conversation, and I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. And when Ven shared their the way that they view it as connecting, and then with the conversation between Alexande and Linda, like presencing also sort of came into the conversation. So like the way I understand it, and I'm not saying that I'm right, I'm just playing with this, is like presencing and connecting would be how we're showing up in our genius, right? It's the verbing of our genius. But it seems like there's also another element there that's like, and I'll use some mystical language here, which I know that doesn't resonate with everybody, but it's like if we were born with a soul's purpose, right? If we have like some unique gift that we're to give to the world, like that seems like, what is that, right? And those questions that are being asked in genius, like unique ability, what do I love to do? So it's like a doing. How do I spend my time? What doesn't seem like work? That almost seems like it's more than just connecting and presencing. It's like I'm also doing something, an activity, while I'm presencing and connecting. So what it, and so there's something else that's an element of genius that we're not talking about yet. That's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was Jason, I love your comment. I as a recording artist, I have had a lot of experience here and there at crunch times when you're really producing and making creation, and I feel like self-expression is that piece that, and however that happens, whether that's talking with somebody, whether that's connecting with yourself and being able to verbalize it, put yourself out there, whether it's a video or a music or writing or whatever, that creation energy, I feel like is part of our genius. It is unique and it needs to be sacred so that we spend our time doing that. But I feel like there is a self-expression, creation, juiciness that happens that when we're in it, we feel it, we want more. It's really enlivening. It's just it's like, oh, I got to do that again. That was just so great. That was so wonderful. And just really, really taking that in, taking who we are in and letting ourselves express ourselves and showing up big. It doesn't always have to be that way, but there is some element of energies really coming forth out of ourselves, if that makes sense. So that's how I see it.
Thank you for that, Julie. I really like that a lot. There's what was the reason I chose to put this bit in this workshop specifically was to kind of just add a layer of discovery and language that can come forth to highlight essence. That was really the goal with this. So I hope that that was helpful in this process. I'm really curious to see how this lands with the rest of this bit. And then I will answer your question about the purpose bit towards the end of this, because I think that everybody is kind of looped back into this, and I don't have the answer of how it applies here, but I've got some suspicions. But before we do that, let's move on to this final exercise of identifying and narrowing core values. So using everything that we talked about before and all this discovery and words in these exercises, start creating a list of the words that closest summarize essence. So the idea, and I'm realizing that this presentation doesn't have the updated verbiage on it. I do apologize. But the idea here is, and I believe the questions that you have are first to talk about the words that closely align with essence. So in this process, how I usually would go about this is looking back on the exercises. I see the words that I kind of wanted to star, or the ones that kind of summarize a group, or the ones that get that sense of aliveness in me, and put those in there. Oh, thank you, Ben. I did not know that that was a possibility. Look at these technological wonders that are happening before our eyes. So taking those and putting those into the essence section. And then once you feel like you've got a good list going there, start distilling. So this whole discovery process, when I do an organizational work, it's a two-part process of gathering and distilling. So this is where we're going to get to that distillation point of identifying those keywords. So in my case, I kind of gave you all an idea of the words that I generally, some of the words that I use to describe my my ams and am nots, the impressions that I hope to make, the impressions I want to avoid. Whenever I distilled everything down for myself, I landed on 4 words: curiosity, authenticity, intention, and co-creation. Those have been my words for probably 3 or 4 years now. And like I was saying before, this connection with commitments and agreements, I started to notice that all of my commitments have a root in one of these words. And I thought that was really interesting. The one that is brushed up against the most in agreements and commitments to me is authenticity. And that's not to say the others aren't, but that's the one I think that gets highlighted the most. But I've also found that in the co-creation, I'm usually in my genius or closer to it. An example of that being, whenever I talked about design being in my zone of excellence, not genius, what I started to do was loop in extremely talented designers who just have design in their genius, that they feel that, and that feeds their genius and then also feeds my value of co-creation. So that feels super aligned, and it brings me back into the stealing of genius. Intention. I'll tell you a little funny story about something that happened today. I'm celebrating a big birthday in a few weeks and planning a party, and the theme was not tying to the experience that people were having. And I like the food and everything. I'll just tell you a little more words around that. The theme is 30 going on 13. So everyone is being asked to dress up as their 13-year-old selves. So whatever that looked like at that time. For me, it's going to be a like a Hurley t-shirt. If anybody knows what that brand is, some weird faux hawk stuff going on with my hair, probably some highlights. Got to bring them back. But I was having a problem with the food because I'm like, this doesn't feel intentional. Like we're just gonna have a dinner party and we're dressing up. This doesn't make any sense. So then my husband's like, well, wait, we were having like pizza parties. That was the thing. I'm like, done. It's a pizza party. Duh, obviously. And there'll be a keg in the backyard. All of this aligns. Intention. Like I could not get about my day without like plugging that hole and fixing that and making that alignment. So am I leaning too far into my core values? Perhaps, but I can't help it. Does anybody have anything they want to share in this room? Yes, root beer, of course, then. Is anybody feeling like they're getting some words rounding out some of this?
Well, this is kind of affirming words that I have played with for a few years, and the same words keep coming up, which is explore, which is my curiosity, always exploring something, always learning something, like a bottomless pit kind of thing. Always creating something and always connecting. So those three words, and then the other word that comes up a lot is inspiring. So that comes from exploring, and then then I create something that might inspire the connection. And so those words keep coming up for me. No matter what, if I'm doing that, I'm a happy camper. You know?
And I think presence is one of yours too, Linda. Like create, what I'm hearing is create, connect, inspire, presence. What was there another one?
Explore, create,
Explore.
connect. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that they're all verbs also.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
I found 4 words and then I rearranged them to inviting curious, creative collaboration.
Mm.
Mm.
I also like inviting as a value too.
Yeah.
I recently just did some work for a tile company, like a consumer-facing tile company, and welcoming is their first value because they're going to have store experiences.
Huh.
That's great. If I was choosing among tile companies for someone to replace the entry to my home, they just got to the top of the list.
There you go. I'll let you know when they launch.
I'm not looking for that right now. I'm very happy with the tile and the entry of my home. But if I was looking in your area for someone to replace the tile to the entry to my home, the welcoming tile company just, yeah. I want to say, Alexande, I love what you do. I'm so appreciating the gift that you've brought with this exploration tonight. I have been I've been doing various explorations of core values for decades. I think I started the first one where I have the notebook still is in the late 90s. And for decades, I have come back to the same 5 words just again and again and again and again. And tonight, I have a different set of words to express the qualities that or a new way of expressing what makes those things important to me. And I don't know whether what that's going to do, next week, but I'm just really appreciating having a new lens and a new page, a new look at what's important to me, where for decades I've known, it's consent, it's love, it's teamwork. And now I'm like, wow, no, it's play, it's connection, it's curiosity. And I actually see those are the same thing to me, but I think they actually communicate more clearly. And I can see your genius in supporting me getting there. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I'm hoping, I'm getting a little tripped up actually, and I'm hoping you can help me get over the hump.
Yeah.
It was helpful to hear distill and look back at all of the words from the previous slides that we worked on. So I have 4 words in the essence part. How do I then translate those into core values? What does that look like?
So you may have them distilled. Do you mind sharing what the words are, or what about them maybe doesn't feel like core values?
Well, I guess my impression is core values are kind of like a call to action, or something that I can take action from. And yeah, maybe it's just going to take a little bit more refining of the words. The words that I have are grounded, loving, compassionate, and interested.
So I will actually say core values to me, in my experience, are not necessarily calls to action as much as they are states of being that promote aliveness. I've never said that before, but you just made those words come out of my mouth. And I'm so appreciative of that, because that truly is it. And what you just described, I felt so comfortable in the words that you just used, Cornelia. I really like those a lot.
All right, that's really helpful. I wrote that down. States of being that create aliveness. I'm holding on to that, and you're getting credit.
Awesome. All of us here, I mean, y'all co-creation, here it is, creating this experience together. Thank y'all so much. I know we're getting close to the time here. It's almost 8, and I wanted to answer Ben's question about purpose. And I'll just speak to it in this organizational setting of this work, is the tree that I described earlier. So if core values are the roots, the trunk is the mission, the branches are the vision, and the leaves and foliage are the culture that grow through it, the purpose is the sun. It's what everything is growing towards, and it's what is providing the nourishment. It's what we're moving toward. How that go, I don't know if there's a direct correlation there that's clear to genius in the personal discovery work. I haven't figured that out just yet, but y'all have got me so much closer to the answer with this exercise. And thank y'all so much for exploring and co-creating this experience. This has been so awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, great. And I know we didn't have too much time to give feedback or kind of dive into that, but if you all have some time to kind of sit with this, and if you have any questions, please send me any feedback. In that, I think that event page will stay open if you want to put any comments in there. And then feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. I just threw my contact information up here, but also I'm active on Mighty. So if you send me a message, I'll see it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you and happy birthday.
Yes.
Thank you. It's coming up.
Yay.
Thank you all so much. And thank you so much, Dean, for hosting.
Yes, I don't know where he is.
That was
Thank you
beautiful.
so much.
Thanks, everyone.